I bet you most people on that day can remember where they were. I mean, this was history.
I'll never ever forget how much pressure I was personally under. All I wanted to do was hide.
I didn't feel confident at all. I felt sort of angry and let down and unfairly treated.
I think that there were a lot of people who despised us for what we'd done.
They seemed a bit stickier in this final. Sticky and wobbly, rather like a jelly.
A perfect crate.
I want to toss one, Peter.
I like well, toss them in your own pan.
Little girl from New Zealand.
South African rugby chief Dr. Dani Craven confirmed tonight that an invitation will be sent to the All Blacks to tour his country next year.
They were actually the team that everyone aspired to play against. In New Zealand, South Africa. It didn't matter who you were playing for, it was just to be able to play against them.
It was a long-standing, competitive, one of our greatest sort of Everest to climb to beat South Africa in South Africa.
They are, historical foes who used to beat us more than we beat them. Pretty simple. That's the history of it.
Everyone's got their political opinions, but for me, it was about me playing rugby, and there was no politics involved. I just wanted to play rugby against one of the best teams in the world.
By the 1980s, the world had come to realise what a horror apartheid was. More and more sports condemned South Africa for its policies of racial discrimination, and pressure were building for us to cut ties with South Africa. Well, the Springboks arrived in 1981. The protests were huge. It was civil unrest. It was terrible. It was the worst protest I think New Zealand has ever seen. So when the team was announced that would be going to South Africa in 1985, more and more were against continuing rugby ties with that country.
I felt that if we went to Africa, we could go with a multicultural team and show them how the world should be. So that was probably a naive look at it.
the New Zealand government has come out saying they are not in support of the upcoming South Africa rugby tour.
Is there any doubt in your mind as to the government's stand over sporting contacts?
Oh no, there hasn't been for quite some time.
Well, I don't think the government supported it at all. And I'm sure the government placed a lot of pressure on the leadership of the rugby union to call off the tour, but of course they didn't.
Would you feel any responsibility if in fact there's trouble, if there are people hurt either here or in South Africa?
I cannot be responsible for what irresponsible people do.
The decision by New Zealand's rugby union to send the All Blacks to South Africa has been met by protests across the country.
Several thousand people marched in a number of centres tonight against the All Black tour of South Africa.
Official estimates put the number at between 30 and 50,000.
I think a few protesters took their protesting too far, and it was very hard for me to respect them about what they were saying to us. Gee, I understand your cause, but man, you don't need to say, you know, I hope my family gets blown up by a bomb.
In addition to the growing public protest, sponsors of the All Blacks are pulling their financial support. McDonald's, Cable Price, Adidas and beer giants DB saying it's no longer in their commercial interest to be associated with the game.
It was a most uncomfortable time for New Zealand, but basically the rugby union had said the tour will go ahead, and was all set to go ahead until two young lawyers decided to take the rugby union and the tour to court.
The plaintiff's basic argument, Mr. Thomas said, was that rugby cannot thrive without the goodwill of the community, and the decision to tour had already damaged that goodwill, perhaps irreparably.
The planned tour to South Africa is off. The rugby union announced that.
The courts had allowed the injunction to stop the tour of the All Blacks going ahead.
Has what's happened surprised or disappointed you?
It certainly disappointed me.
Despite the rugby union's disappointment, the judge said there was real evidence that there would be a loss of life and bloodshed in South Africa if the tour went ahead.
The feeling amongst the players when the tour was cancelled because of the court case was disappointment. I was disappointed at the time because I'd been selected to go.
And part of my dream of being an All Black was to play in South Africa. That was taken away from me. But that's just the way it was, and you've just got to get on with life. And I think that I would have loved to have gone and represented New Zealand as an All Black.
As soon as the tour was stopped, we heard rumours about the possibilities of a rebel tour.
Was there secrecy behind the scenes? Of course there was. It had been going on for quite a while, right from the time that it was actually taken away from us.
Feeling was rebelliousness. How can you tell me that I can't tour South Africa? So there was a sense of sort of anger and FU as well. Andy Hayden in particular came into my room and just said, we're planning to have a rebel tour to South Africa next year. The rugby union couldn't send a team because they'd been injuncted, but players of their own accord could go. That was the sort of talk.
At TVNZ, we started to hear rumours that the tour was happening. One of our staff was invited at a function in Auckland to consider buying the rights for the TV coverage. I mean, there was more and more fact coming into the story and the rumours all the time.
Wherever the reports are coming from out there, they're coming in thick and fast. Earlier today, Auckland coach John Hart had this to say on the subject.
Well, let me answer it this way. Where there's smoke, there's fire.
All Blacks we contacted today denied all knowledge of a secret rebel tour.
Can we get an unequivocal yes or no? Are you going to lead a rebel tour to South Africa?
No, I'm not.
All Black lock Andy Hayden admitted that he may have fuelled speculation about a rebel tour to South Africa when a British journalist rang him last night claiming a colleague had seen him in Johannesburg. Hayden replied, "This is a recorded message."
Those players must have known that if they were going to go on a tour where there was going to be money paid to them, that would be the end of their playing of rugby union, because there was no way the International Rugby Board, who ran the game from Britain, would allow professionalism into the game.
Do you know whether these guys are getting large amounts of money in South Africa?
Who knows? I heard in Wellington over the weekend, $58,000 a man, plus a share of the gate, and it's all in a Hong Kong bank account.
There's no evidence that they're getting paid at the moment. I mean, we've also heard comment that they're getting paid the normal IRB allowance per day.
For a guy like Wayne Shelford to leave the Navy and to go on this tour, it seems a big decision to make if you're just getting £14 a day.
Yeah, I was offered money. I don't know about anyone else.
Well, we weren't offered a lot of money.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was $100,000.
I don't know whether there's money involved, but it's got a bit of a smell about it to me.
If they accept any money, are you going to ban them?
Certainly.
But if players did take the money, they wouldn't be able to tell the truth about it. Because if they told the truth about it, they wouldn't be able to play anymore.
And it was probably the hardest time of my life. So I spent many, many sleepless nights, and I'll never ever forget how much pressure I was personally under. Not from anyone else, but from myself and from the situation. So the government said, don't go. The rugby union had said, don't go. And then we had the majority of the rugby team that thought we should go, that we shouldn't mix sports with politics. I was a butcher, so I was a butcher with my dad. I went and spoke to my dad, and he said, well, you know, what does your gut say?
For me, it was a whole mixture, a jumbled mixture of difficult decisions. The one reason for going, to not let your teammates down, was a really strong one. You know, you're very close in a team and a sense of obligation to your teammates. But there was also my maturing view that it was just the whole sense of isolating South Africa and South Africa needing to change, and for it being the right thing to do for anyone to put pressure on South Africa to change was happening, and that's the way I was feeling. My decision was not to go. So I was shut out, and understandably so, from that point onwards.
So we're talking the Rebel Tour, and Gary thinks it's divided a nation. Daryl from Invercargill, what do you think?
I think a lot of them should be banned for life. It's stupid after 1991.
My focus is always on rugby and pushing aside those sort of issues, solely because if you thought about that too much, why would you go on tour? For me, it was all about playing against South Africa, in South Africa, because I might not get the chance again. You know, is that selfish? Of course it is. You know, I had a family with children, and but sometimes you've got to really chase your dream. And if you don't take those chances in life, you miss out.
I'd made my decision. I stood up amongst my peers and told them that I wasn't going. And there was quite a lot of confrontation and quite a lot of discussion. You know, people say, oh, was it about the apartheid? Yeah, it wasn't just about that though. It was about, you know, the fear of never playing for the All Blacks again was as strong. And then when I pulled out, I was offered double, which really annoyed me, because I felt that someone was trying to buy my morals and my values.
A party of 30 players and 2 coaches is off to South Africa for 12 matches, including 4 so-called tests due to start next week.
When the first players arrived, the protesters and the media were caught by surprise. Those first All Blacks were whisked out of sight. Several Canterbury All Blacks came in another entrance while the protesters were preoccupied.
The country was shocked. It was a big deal, a very big deal, big headlines, big story, because it was a shocking story.
Rugby is now bereft of credibility, bereft of respect, unable to tell the truth.
Do you think the players who have gone should be banned from the game?
Well, that's a matter for rugby. If rugby takes no step against these players, then rugby, as Mr. Blasey knows it, is dead.
The Rebels had taken off their team jumpers and were trying to look as little like rugby players as possible when they...
I saw them on TV at Sydney Airport, all of them heads down, just walking straight ahead, not talking to anyone.
Are you embarrassed about what you're doing?
I don't know what you're talking about.
You're jeopardising the Commonwealth Games.
When I saw that, I just knew I'd made the right decision not to go.
Latest speculation is that you are leaving New Zealand to join up with the rebel tourists in South Africa for the first test. Are you?
No,
Why aren't you going to South Africa?
I don't want to.
I do remember an interview I had that I was struggling to answer the questions because I didn't want to represent anyone back then. I didn't want to be a hero of the cause.
Do you think they've made the wrong decision?
No, I don't. It's their decision.
All I wanted to do was hide.
We have today in our midst 30 New Zealand rugby players who have come to this country to play against South African provincial sides and play also against the strongest team we can offer them.
But do you think they're going to give the Springboks a good go?
We'll try. Yeah, definitely we'll be trying. We are not the All Blacks. This is not the official team of the New Zealand Rugby Union, and we will be known as the Cavaliers.
It was a kind of a jocular name for flying in the face of tradition, kind of cavalier attitude. Many of us in the media, including myself, very quickly called them the Cavaliers because of the sort of fibs they'd told before the team had left New Zealand.
Get a bit of style back into the running jot, the wobbling.
I think that there were a lot of people who despised us for what we'd done. For me, it's oblivious to their politics. I was oblivious to it. Truthfully, I have to say that, we can't even look after our own backyard. Why are we worrying about another nation? Playing rugby used to be always there. Oh, you black bastard, all that sort of stuff. You get the nigger word brought out all the time. So when you equate that to South Africa, look after your own backyard first. If you can't do that, well, why are you worried about what happens overseas?
I didn't know whether the other players had misread the mood of the nation at that time, but they firmly believed, and I remember them telling me this, was that once we got over there, all of this would be forgotten, people would just focus on the rugby, and people would be very supportive of the tour. That's what they thought, that's what they believed. They were wrong. They were completely wrong.
The Cavaliers chose one of the most turbulent periods in the history of South Africa to make their rebel tour.
won the series by 3 matches to 1.
Grand Prix style all over the camera.
23 players, an All Black selector and a former All Black captain threw the future of rugby, and for all we know, all New Zealand sportsmen and women into jeopardy by setting off for a rebel rugby tour of South Africa. Our studio guest is David Kirk, the All Black who said no. Can I ask you just briefly to explain why you don't want to go to South Africa?
Any sporting tour these days is construed to be a support for the South African political regime as is at present, and I didn't want to be a part of a sporting tour that was construed that way.
So it's as simple as that for you. All right, thank you very much. There's David Kirk. He's our studio guest today. We're going straight into the talk back now, and we're going to say hello to Troy Napier. Good afternoon, Troy.
Hello. Now, my question is that what would you like to see to be done to the players that come back now?
What I don't want to happen is for them to be banned from rugby. There's going to be a call to ban the players, and that is, they're going to have pressure on them to do that.
That must be one option, mustn't it?
That must be
suspension or banning.
It must be an option.
And they also have at the back of their mind, presumably, the fact that the French and the Aussies are coming over here. We need a team to play them.
New Zealand Rugby Union is believed to have made a decision about the Cavalier tour of South Africa. Representatives of the Cavaliers rugby team trooped into Rugby Union headquarters in Wellington today to face the music.
The Rugby Union banned them for just 2 games. It was a slap on the back of the hand with a wet bus ticket.
We knew that the ban was a joke. It was semi-accepted behind closed doors by the NZRFU that if you go, we'll slap your hand, but you'll be able to play.
But the players in the Cavaliers team won't be considered for the test against the visiting French team later this month.
Well, it was just a necessary thing to select a new team because the players were banned for 2 matches after, got to say, a pretty cursory examination. The top 30 players, I guess except for John Kirwan and myself, weren't available, so they had to look pretty far and wide.
Going to an All Black training run was to go to something that we all knew about and we saw familiar names, but now that's all changed in these days of Cavalier tours and such. In fact, if you asked the average rugby supporter to name 5 All Blacks, he'd be hard-pressed to do so. Selects may say it's the All Blacks C team, but they've 80 minutes on Saturday to prove everyone wrong.
We had young players who were just teenagers. We had guys from the farms in Wairarapa. It was a bunch of sort of no-names thrown together. The French were the 5 Nations champions from Northern Hemisphere rugby, so they were bringing a strong team. But no sports team from France had come into New Zealand since the Rainbow Warrior bombing. The French government was testing nuclear bombs in our neighbourhood, in the Pacific. And we were leading the way in protest against nuclear testing.
The former 400-ton fishing trawler Rainbow Warrior looked a tragic sight today after being rocked by 2 separate explosions, which also resulted in the death of 1 crew member.
The French government sent in agents into our territory and bombed a nuclear protest ship in Auckland Harbour. It's a despicable act.
They committed basically murder in a foreign country. Who was supposed to be an ally. There was plenty of talk that the French manager visited the 2 Rainbow Warrior bombers. Until then, both sporting sides had tried to keep the politics out of the sport.
The new All Black team is preparing for this Saturday's game, which is being billed as a David versus Goliath match against France. But with skipper Andy Dalton banned, it has fallen on the diminutive David Kirk to captain this inexperienced team.
He's a very small guy to be ordering some large guys around, isn't he?
Well, you know the story. Small guys are better at doing that than big guys, I think.
Everything else we do better.
There's a responsibility, and I think back on those that have gone before, All Black captains, and I sort of don't see myself really in the same light as the Wilson Winnerays and the Colin Meadses and the Brian Lahores.
I was an unusual choice as captain because typically captains of the All Blacks have been forwards, have been strong, silent types, perhaps uncomplicated. I was much more talkative. I was probably better educated, came from a different background than a lot of other All Black captains. I was a medical student. Yeah, I was in my 4th year of medicine.
He's a little bit different, really intelligent. You know, he'd say words, I'd say, mate, what does that mean, you know? And some people would feel a little bit intimidated by A, his intelligence, B, his ability not to fake that and dumb it down, and his ability just to be himself.
It felt a great honour, but it felt a strange time.
Right, captain, please.
You know, sense of being given the opportunity because others weren't available.
Right, this time, Bullo's head's up there, that's the way, that's good.
But then immediately you realise that you've got a big obligation. You've got a big opportunity, but it's a pretty heavy weight to carry too.
Good. Right, this time there, Bullo's head's up.
Big day for 15 men with the silver fur.
Without doubt, Grant, the talk's finished, the work of practice is finished too, the motivation's over, and now 15 All Blacks have 80 minutes to prove they're worthy to wear the silver fern.
It was just a bunch of young boys. We knew we weren't good enough. It was just a real collective want to win and to do well and to make sure we don't let the All Black jersey down and New Zealand down.
It's got to be the most inexperienced All Black team that's ever played a test match.
Dumping David Kirk.
There's no doubt which side the crowd are on today.
We knew if we got into an arm wrestle, into a slog with a big, strong French forward pack and powerful backs, that we couldn't prevail. We just played to try and keep the ball alive and try and keep the ball moving the whole time.
Kirk, the Boddicker, Harper Stone, Joe Stanley bursting in. Kirk, Boddicker, Skay, on the sun. Must have knocked it on.
And this very experienced French front five are going to put so much pressure on the green All Blacks, you can say.
And a penalty. With the drop kick, first chance for New Zealand, and the All Blacks hit the front.
They brought onto the field a new type of rugby. They play with a lot of flair and style.
With the strength of Kirwan, found Harvey. Here's Brewer, Mike Brewer. Great try to the All Blacks.
And they introduced a tactic that the French play with often. They drop kick for goal.
Drop kick. Second drop kick for the All Blacks. And a penalty against the French. It's all going right for the All Blacks. Bumping tackle. Crunching tackle from Kirwan. And the All Blacks are tackling everything. And I think that sums up the New Look All Blacks. Here's the drop kick. Yes, it's another one for Bruno Boddicker. The Bizier. Sharma and Kirwan with a chance. John Kirwan. Absolutely inspired play by the All Blacks.
New Look All Black side have acquitted themselves marvellously, on a par with any All Black side.
And there's the final whistle. New chapter in New Zealand rugby can be written, and I suppose one could say, who needs the Cavaliers?
What do you go, Dave?
I was just excited. I was extremely happy and excited to have captained the team and to have won unexpectedly.
For me, it was a real New Zealand moment, because we shouldn't have won. And something that would never, ever, be erased from my memory, and really, really special. Just this real moment of camaraderie that only that week you can share. And so it was just really, really special.
There was enormous satisfaction over the country at the victory, and we quickly sort of wrapped our arms around that team and lovingly called them the Baby Blacks.
I guess that represents a very satisfactory day's work, David.
It certainly does. It certainly was work. It was very hard work.
And new All Black captain David Kirk says that any major changes to yesterday's winning team would be harsh treatment for the newcomers. Kirk says most of the side played themselves into future All Black teams as they beat the French in Christchurch.
Very quick comment I made as I was leaving the field. I hope these players, meaning the players who just played, have a long future with the All Blacks. It was a fateful thing to say.
GST is here, brings a 10% charge on nearly all goods and services.
Pope John Paul, stepping onto New Zealand soil, made his traditional gesture.
Today's picket is the beginning of a campaign against a whole range of French products sold in New Zealand as a way of protesting against nuclear testing at Mururoa.
New Zealanders are protesting because it looks like the French bombers will be released after serving just 18 months. Being nuclear free is a realistic possibility.
New Zealand has been punished for its anti-nuclear stance by being cast out of the ANZUS International Security Treaty.
It's been confirmed New Zealand is the favoured location of the first ever Rugby World Cup. New Zealand and Australia would host the tournament together, but first they will need to play each other in the up-and-coming Bledisloe Cup.
The selectors made changes, and they brought back a lot of the Cavaliers players. And they retained David as captain.
This gives the winner a psychological advantage for the World Cup. This starts and finishes a few rugby careers.
So under Carisbrook come the All Black side, led by David Kirk.
The All Blacks have to win this game. And I must admit, we couldn't get a bet on the All Blacks. No one wanted to back the All Blacks. It's a terrible thing to say in a rugby country like ours.
The most difficult part of my playing career was when the selectors basically replaced all of the baby black players except for a few and brought back all the players that had gone to South Africa. But they left me as captain.
Formalities completed, and we're almost set to go.
I then had to captain a team that some of the players were angry and embittered towards me because I had not gone to South Africa.
New Zealand must win.
Secondly, I had benefited from the fact that I hadn't gone because I'd become the All Black captain.
He was treated pretty poorly when the team came back, so there was some retribution, and so he was, I felt, treated poorly by some of our peers.
I think it did put David Kirk in a difficult position, trying to captain that team. He was pushed out of some of the team huddles on the field by some of the gnarly old guys who'd been on the tour who might have spoken ill of him because he hadn't gone with them.
It was clear that no one was engaging me, no one was looking at me, no one was wanting to engage with me as the captain.
Kirk to Kirwan, to Kirk.
And then other times they would just walk away as a group, basically, cold shoulder type of approach.
It's like great for him, he's a skipper, great respect for him, but we all need a help. This is not just about one man.
It's really emotionally difficult. You lose confidence.
To Kirk, Kirwan. Kirk with the kick.
I lacked confidence.
He's mistimed it somewhat.
I was anxious about my ability to do the job in those circumstances.
Leads and yes!
Scared about losing.
Remember, the All Blacks need to score twice to retain the Bledisloe Cup. It looks unlikely at the moment.
It was just a difficult time.
Australia have turned it over. Here's Far Jones. Chance here for Campese. And goodbye to the Bledisloe Cup.
I think we were less cohesive, less of a team.
Yeah, we just weren't good enough.
Australia have won the Bledisloe Cup, and deservedly so.
You know, we don't like losing. Pretty simple, and especially to our near neighbours. That obviously hurt.
So we lost the series 2-1 and we had to hand over the Bledisloe Cup. I'm still the last captain to captain an All Black side to lose to the Wallabies on Eden Park. But I felt terrible.
When we lose a rugby union test, we really feel it keenly. Oh yeah, never want to lose to the Australians, never, never.
Me personally, I feel physically sick when I lose. And also I'd be battling mentally. Because when you win, you have that to fall back on. Yeah? So, yeah, losing has always been a really, really difficult thing for me.
And now it's time for today's sporting news. The lead story...
It's funny, there's a few moments in your life where you just remember exactly where you were when you heard the news.
The All Blacks team has been named ahead of the upcoming test matches in France. The biggest change is that David Kirk has been dropped as captain. Jock Hobbs will lead the team, while Kirk retains his place.
So I heard it first on the radio. Pretty pissed off, actually. I just felt really... I wasn't... being the captain of the All Blacks wasn't the thing. You know, the selectors have got every right to make whatever decision they want to make, but I thought they owed me the courtesy to talk to me about it in person or on the phone before they announced the decision and had me hear it on the radio.
The All Blacks left tonight from Tour of France. However, the Cavaliers' rebel tour to South Africa continues to haunt the players.
The All Blacks had only just arrived at the airport when they were confronted by protesters.
Here's a rugby scum. How much money? Racist rugby. Racist rugby. Blood money. $10,000, so we're going to get paid this time. $7,500 a game.
When the All Blacks went to France, there was a little bit of tension, a little bit of crackle in the air.
Touring France during that period, the Rainbow Warrior was never discussed. It was the elephant in the room, it was the big undercurrent, and there was continuing bad blood.
The French, for me, have been a team that you always be wary of because you don't know which one you're going to get. They could come out and thrash you, you know, especially if you don't prepare properly.
The French are always a dominant force. You still didn't know what you were going to get, but if you got them on their day, you knew that you were in for a massive, massive game.
We were waiting in the tunnel to go out on the field, and they come out of their change room and they lined up in front of us, and we were facing them. They were a different team. You could see it in their eyes. Their eyes were all bloodshot, and it was like they were on something.
We knew that there was something up this day. We knew it was going to be a big day. You know, they were literally frothing at the mouth. The crowd seemed to be on top of us, and they were possessed.
Jesus, it's a cauldron.
They came there and they started that test with incredible ferocity and pretty dirty.
Oh, that's a late charge. Must be Ben Lowe.
3 words. The Battle of Nantes. I'd have to say it was the toughest game of rugby I'd ever played in. And I'd say tough, it was brutal. It was just like a never-ending wave of power. They just kept smashing us and smashing us and smashing us.
Violent was the atmosphere when we were playing. It was violent from minute one.
Another All Black injured across way on the far side.
We had guys going down all the time. They had guys going down. So it was just full on.
Guys had been, kicked in the head and blood coming from this, blood coming from that.
In a very niggly game.
The most aggressive game I've ever played in.
I got kicked on the floor. I got kicked in the face and lost a couple of teeth. I went down on another ruck. I got kicked right between the legs and, man, it hurt. It knocked me out cold. And then Jock said, you can't go off, you can't go off. We need you, we need you. Anyway, I was in La La Land most of the time.
Now the All Blacks are in a bit of trouble here because Wayne Shelford looks like he's leaving the field. A real test now for the All Blacks. Right at this time. Charging through here, Barney. Diving, yes. Getting close, Chavez.
One of the only times ever in my All Black playing career we were actually sort of blown off the field was normally us doing that to other teams. But this time it was the French doing it to us.
So today threatens to be a record of some sort, and in fact there it is. The French are ecstatic. They've deservedly won the test match here at Nantes by 16 points to 3. Disappointment for the All Blacks of a long, hard season for some of these players. I'm sure they'll be relieved that the rugby season is finally over.
I saw more blood in the All Black changing shed after that game than I didn't see in any changing room. It was time to get showered up and dropped the strides, went to the shower, and John Gallagher was sitting right opposite me, and he says, "Holy hell, look at that!" And here's one of my testicles swinging between my legs, been ripped right out of the scrotum.
The changing room, people were shocked. They were just like, didn't know what to say.
And the doctor started freaking out, because it was horrendous. And he kept saying to Buck, we've got to go. This is serious. You might not be able to have children and all that sort of stuff. And we're all sort of gagging. I think there was 46 stitches in the end. And then the strength of the guy to be standing at the bar having a beer 2 hours later, coming back from the hospital. Doesn't make sense.
The morning after, players were, drinking beer and getting drunk and everything, and some people said what I'm sure they wanted to say, that had been wanting to say since the Cavaliers had come back. That they thought I was an arsehole, thought that I had, wanted to shut down their careers by what I said after the game and the first Baby Black test against France, that I had taken advantage of the situation by not going to South Africa to get myself further ahead than I should have been, that I wasn't, they didn't respect me as a captain of the All Blacks. In the end, I did leave and went up to my room in the hotel. But I still remember I was in tears, and JK and Joe Stanley and Craig Green were there. They were the players that were supportive of me at that time.
Finally it's over, a rugby season overshadowed by the Cavaliers and ending in defeat in France. Now thoughts turn to the World Cup.
I think they were angry at some of their own performances. Some of them were disappointed that the Cavaliers had broken up the spirit of togetherness, and they were angry at some of the results that they'd had to face. They were not in a good state at the end of '86, and not at all.
We'd lost a series to Australia, and we'd lost in Nantes, which was the last test before the World Cup in 1987. It was a pretty tough time afterwards, a lot of introspection. That stayed with us, that was stored away.
We were in trouble. The anxiety started to take a bit more control. Had an inferiority complex and an imposter complex. So when I played, I didn't think I was good enough, and when I did something well, I thought that I was going to get called out because I really wasn't that good, just lucky.
I battled through that summer to get motivated. I felt sort of angry and let down and unfairly treated, and didn't feel good at all. I struggled, and I had my own anxieties and feelings of lack of self-worth and so on through that period. It was difficult.
The best thing that came out of 1986 was Wayne Shelford. He was tough, he was out front. He was sometimes brutish. He hadn't been a regular player up until that point, but his strength and his drive, his determination shone through.
He was tough, uncompromising, skillful. He'd put his head in the dark places that only forwards can and relish it. And if he had a jersey ripped and a ruck marks down his back and a little bit of claret spilt, then he had been in the thick of it, and that probably happened more games than it didn't.
What he brought to the team, which we hadn't had before, was that presence as a highly authentic, true to himself Māori man.
He was obviously very proud of his heritage. So for us, the simple way that he expressed that was telling us how we should do the haka.
This, I promise you, is what we've been waiting for the last 3 months.
I watched a few of the games on TV because the haka was never done in New Zealand. The attempts at doing it wasn't that great. They were all out of time. A lot of them are doing different actions. They looked like boards. They were just stiff. There's no flow in their arms and and their legs. Some of them couldn't keep a beat. Yes, some of them just make you laugh.
He told us what it meant to him, what it meant to the Māori people.
It's a challenge of respect, a challenge for ourselves to actually front up behind the haka. So that you do the haka, well, you got to front up then, don't you? We had to deliver it better. We had to teach these guys because they were sloppy. I wanted 100% buy-in or nothing at all. We actually went to Te Aute College. As we walked up, the whole school done a haka to us, and pretty impressive. Then all of a sudden, the All Blacks realised what it was like to receive one, because not very many of them have been on the receiving end of a haka. They realised how powerful it could be.
When you understand something, you got a greater clarity about it. I mean, it was spine-tingling to actually even, you know, I'm a New Zealand European, it was spine-tingling. So that's when it became, you know, I think more powerful for the All Black team.
So 1987 arrived and there had never been, and finally there was, a Rugby World Cup. There definitely was a feeling in some quarters that New Zealand was a little backwater and too small to stage a Rugby World Cup successfully. It was really, really touch and go whether it would be a success or not.
Pressure in our own backyard, you know, you can't block that out. We knew the prize at the end of it. You know, the chance to win the inaugural Rugby World Cup, and only one team can win the first one. So, you know, we wanted to be that team.
The honour to play in the first World Cup is huge, ever. You know, you go down in history of being the team that won that first ever World Cup. I think that's an awesome thing.
There was a huge sea change in New Zealand rugby. The New Zealand Rugby Union, I don't know, the penny dropped. But they dropped 2 of the 3 All Black selectors.
Kid, go. Right, thinking, pick up your pace.
They brought in these 2 dynamic coaches, John Hart and Alex Wiley, to support the more solid Brian Lahore. And that made a dynamic trio picking the All Blacks for the World Cup.
Those 3 basically washed away the old and brought in the new.
The following players have been selected to represent the New Zealand Rugby Football Union. John Gallagher.
The makeup of the team for the World Cup was some very young players like John Gallagher, and Michael Jones was in. A lot of the exciting newcomers.
And the team that was selected for the World Cup was pretty much an entirely new team. People forget how inexperienced that team was.
It was a new team, but they recalled Andy Dalton to be captain.
Andy Dalton was selected as captain, but I didn't think he should have been selected as a player, let alone as the captain. Sean Fitzpatrick was a better player, and Sean Fitzpatrick was playing great rugby. But I also felt that everything we'd been through the previous year with the Cavaliers Tour and the Tour de France at the end of the year, there was an opportunity for the selectors to close the book on that and to move forward. And to some extent I felt that Andy was a continuation of the previous year.
The biggest concern was the internal turmoil. Some guys coming back into the side, you know, mixing that. So there was still a lot of internal turmoil.
Brian said something to us which resonated to the last year's tour to South Africa, that we had to get over our grievances against the 2 guys that didn't actually go on the tour. and they were David and JK.
Get over yourselves. That's in the past. We've got a job to do moving forward. I think the biggest thing he did then was raise the importance around recovering a nation.
The question was, could they play under the old captain, who'd been the captain originally of the Cavaliers, and then there was the tensions from the previous year, and make it all fit?
The thinking behind the World Cup from the coaching staff was we got put on this fitness regime before the World Cup, and we just had to do it and train our butts off individually, and that was one of the big things. We were probably the fittest we'd ever been as an All Black side.
It was still an amateur game. These guys came off farms, they came off teaching careers, they came out of offices and banks. They were amateurs who had jobs Monday to Friday, but gave them up to play for the All Blacks in the World Cup.
Effectively working and indulging our passion. It was my role in the team to kick goals.
Grant Fox was a machine. He was so methodical. Nobody took the time over a kick than Grant Fox did.
You know, if you're the goal kicker, you got to want to do it. You want to stand in front of 50,000 people with everyone watching you and a few million on television. Because if you don't want to be in that spotlight, then you shouldn't be here. You know, I love kicking a rugby ball.
I'd get up at 3 a.m. to bone out sides of beef. That was really physical work and it was tough. So, you know, and then we'd go and train. I wasn't very good at sidestepping and keeping my pace. I said to my dad, "Dad, I've got a real problem when I step." And he just said to me, "Oh, would you like to learn?" I said, "I'd love to learn." Every day I went through the trees. So I had to slow my pace down to like 20%. I couldn't do it. After about 6 weeks, I could run through at full pace.
The opening ceremony day was a funny day. There was no budget. I don't think the government were supportive. They were still not happy with rugby's endorsement of contacts with South Africa over the previous 6 or 7 years. So we got brass band, marching girls, school kids from neighbouring grounds. A very modest Kiwi opening ceremony to mark at least that the Rugby World Cup had arrived.
I have the greatest pleasure in declaring the 1987 World Cup tournament officially open.
There were 16 teams at the World Cup. South Africa wasn't included. They thought it'd be better if South Africa stayed away from a World Cup event in New Zealand. The first game the All Blacks played on the opening day against Italy, there were 30,000 seats unsold.
Eden Park was only half full, so no one really knew what to expect from the Rugby World Cup. So nerves, big part of it, pressure, massive part of it whenever you pull the All Black jersey on, but also excitement.
The amazing thing for me was just the whole expectation and the pressure of the expectation. I had this, you know, inferiority complex, my feeling that I'm dumb, that was creating anxiety. So by then I was having anxiety attacks. I was just a mess.
Everything was looking good for New Zealand before the tournament started, but tragically Captain Andy Dalton pulled a muscle in his leg. It was obvious that he was out for the whole of the next 6 weeks.
I felt for Andy because he was a player clearly towards the end of his career. Wasn't going to be too many more opportunities for Andy. Sadly for Andy, it just happened at the wrong time.
Brian Lahore just turned to me and said to me, "You're captain of the side." So it was as matter of fact and straightforward as that.
David got the C put beside his name. Pleased for Kirky? Absolutely.
Referee Bob Fordham of Australia signals and Grant Fox begins the first ever Rugby World Cup match. Well, the Collywobbles belong to the All Blacks at the moment.
I think it might be worth the All Blacks just trying to take some of the pressure off, because they've really got the jitters.
There was a lot of pressure on me, but I was like, I'm just going to give it my best shot and give us stuff about what's been in the past, and I don't give stuff about those people. I'm just going to go ahead and give it my best shot. I want to play in the World Cup.
Shelford, tight head, Alan Wetton, Fox in pass, and the first try goes to Michael Jones. Kirk is on his own, and Kirk's in. Stanley, straight out to Kirwan. Lots of men ahead of him. Gallagher, and Taylor has struck back for the All Blacks.
John Kirwan's run, wow, that lit everything up.
So Ambrosio kicks off. The Italians are beaten right out of the action now. New Zealand have scored 48 points and they might be looking for 50. John Kirwan. And what a way to bring up 50 points. John Kirwan scores a try that they'll never forget here at Eden Park.
One of the best tries in the world I'd ever seen. It was absolutely brilliant. It was a great way of actually starting the World Cup.
70 points to 6 for New Zealand.
Well, after that game, sort of showed the New Zealand public that this was a team that could be something special.
Support from Shelford and Craig Green. Struck it beautifully. Never looked like missing. John Gallagher. Sprint for the corner. Yes. Big gap for David Kirk. Plenty of speed and easy.
Each step we were getting better. We were getting to know each other more. We were more confident of the risks we needed to take.
One of the things about that team is we had this belief that if we threw the ball over our outside shoulder, somebody was always going to catch it.
Joe Stanley on the charge. Straight through. John Gallagher. And that's it. 74-13 to the All Blacks.
The motivation was getting bigger and bigger as we went through the tournament, that we were going to be in a position to win our pool.
Disgraceful. There was no effort at all to even try and tackle a man.
Kirk, captain of New Zealand through these World Cup matches. He doesn't look 100%, but he is a victorious captain for the third time. 46-15, they have beaten Argentina.
New Zealand very nearly lost their captain, but David Kirk carried on.
New Zealand, the group winners, comfortably through to the quarterfinals.
By the quarterfinals, the top 4 teams were New Zealand, and France, and Australia, and Scotland. Scotland were a very strong, powerful forward unit, and it was Scotland that New Zealand were to play in the quarterfinals.
In a quarterfinal, it's a knockout. So if we lost, it was back to work on Monday, and the coaches did not stint in telling us that was what was at stake.
The newspapers are writing up the Scottish team big time, that they were going to beat us up. Basically, they were going to be our first loss on the tournament. And so our inspiration was we scrummaged them out of the game.
Steady, Black. Steady, coming.
One of our scrummaging sessions pre the game, I think we'd done about 60, 70 scrums. And hitting tackle bags either side.
Go. That's the one. Here it is. This is the tackle. Hit.
It was a tough session, but when we finished it, we felt good about ourselves.
Welcome to Rugby World Cup's first quarterfinal, New Zealand against Scotland. Call it what you like, sudden death, do or die. The losers, well, quite simply, they head back home. And there are the New Zealand team in the all-white jerseys today.
Every time we've moved one step closer to the final, people have felt better about rugby, felt better about the All Blacks.
So it's a very big crowd at Lancaster Park today. Must be close to 40,000 people.
Start to the kick-off, they're kicking at us. Now they kick long or short. Conservative, accurate down their end.
I felt I had total support from my teammates. No one wanted to revisit 1986. Everyone wanted to put it behind them. They were over it. They wanted to be led. They wanted to succeed.
So Rugby World Cup's quarterfinals begin. Shelford. Look at Shelford again. Joe Stanley. Penalty. It's a try for New Zealand. To the semis. There's Grant Fox, and once again 22 points off his boot.
We just blasted them. We put a pretty big score on them, actually. The other semi-final was between Australia and France. We were in the hotel watching, and we wanted the French to win.
Line out on the 10-metre line out in front. There it goes. 3 points. And the French have it. And a big man.
The score seesawed backwards and forwards 3 or 4 different times.
It was a thriller. With the lead changing so many times, the place in the final was decided in the last minute of play.
To Lajewski, he's got to go on his own. He's got no one with him. Rodriguez to Blanco, who pins his ears back and goes for the corner flag. That must surely be the winning of the match for the French.
It meant that the French were through to play New Zealand in the final.
And the French are heading for Eden Park.
All the All Blacks, they just jumped up in the air and said, yes, we've got the bastards. We wanted them in the final. You know, we just say to the French, we're coming. Come Saturday morning, this is where I started feeling it. When the players were really, really prepared, you could tell. And you could actually slice the air with a knife. That was the feeling in the hotel.
I remember the morning of the game well, helicopters buzzing over our hotel. That was sort of feels like another world.
This was history. Nervous excitement means you've gone bone deep in your preparation, you're ready, because if you can't feel that, you know you're not where you need to be, and there's a chance your opposition are, and if they've got 15 guys in a better space than you are in that regard, then life's going to be difficult.
In 1987, a haka had never been done in New Zealand before. Somebody asked me about, are you guys going to do the haka? And I asked this guy, go away and find out for me if we can do it here. Got back to me pretty quickly and he said, it belongs to us. We can do it here in our country as well.
There's this kind of rush of expectation and hope and excitement and anxiety. But that first rush of, we're off.
The bus trip to the game, as we got closer and closer, just the crowds, the excitement that they were showing more so than ever before that I can recall.
There's already this atmosphere and people are honking their horns and waving, and you're coming in and people are lining up on the streets to wish you luck. You know, it's this surreal moment.
I recall being comfortable enough till I started to see the big crowds close to the park and went, oh my God. I was dry reaching on the bus. That was relatively normal for me, which suggested to me I was ready to play. Just nerves, and I wasn't the only player.
This is it. You know, you've got to front. You've got to play really well today. So how do you control the nerves? And you know, are you ready? And have you done everything? Constantly battling yourself. You know, shit. What if I muck it up? You know, you won't muck it up, and so you're having these little internal battles.
Certainly every vantage point being taken today as we stand by for this wonderful occasion, the playing of the first ever Rugby World Cup final.
By the time of the final, the whole country was certainly behind them. From that first game, the terraces just trebled to 50,000 for the final. When the French realised their team had made the final, they filled jumbo jets and flew them to New Zealand. They came in their droves. The French were still the more experienced team in terms of international tests played by each player.
You're always wary of the French, and we've always had a history of losing to them. You know, the French, when they get their game together, they're very, very hard to beat.
So we knew what we were in for, and they were going to bring that same mindset.
For many of us who lost the year before, great motivating factor was that, and the motivating factor was to win for New Zealand, in New Zealand. And so all they were was 15 guys in our way. But going out onto the field, I use the 3 words all the time to the team, and it was kia kaha e homa. Be strong, my friends.
as the All Blacks did the haka, and you saw the French accepting the challenge.
Nervous? You're carrying the weight of New Zealanders, all these New Zealanders.
The shortest day, the biggest day in rugby world history. Lagisquet, Chavet, Blanco up to fullback. Here come the French. Stanley, Gallagher up. Green. Oh, that's the little move that they do so well together. But there's a free kick now to New Zealand. It's going to be the snapshot. And that's victory. Fox and the All Blacks lead. Another drop kick from Fox. Lagisquet and Kirwan. Oh, there's 7 black shirts there. Jones. Try by Michael Jones. New Zealand have dominated, and they lead at the break by 9 points to 0.
Half-time, I didn't feel confident at all.
Body's down and we just work. It's all work.
If they'd scored first after half-time, either a penalty or a try, I would have felt very wobbly. My message to the team was simply grind, 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 basics, basics, basics.
The game's not over yet. Kirk's back in the play and through. Kirwan. Oh, I don't believe it. Kirwan has scored. John Kirwan's gone right back down in that corner, and they're giving him the big standing O down there. Look at that for John Kirwan. So that's another fine kick from Grant Fox. Yes, another goal for Fox. Kirk, Fox, Jones, Kirk. David Kirk.
I just knew the way the game was going, and because we were that far ahead, that we'd won the World Cup. And so I remember kneeling down on the ground, just banging my fist on the ground, knowing we'd won the World Cup.
I think then we started to realise that, you know, we had fulfilled, you know, what we'd come here to do.
The game is over. The All Blacks have won by 29 points to 9. It's a 20-point victory for the All Blacks in the Rugby World Cup final of 1987.
When that final whistle went, it was just relief. You know, the first ever, we won it in New Zealand.
You know, in terms of rugby, it's the highest. You only get a chance to win the first Rugby World Cup once because no one else can win it. And so we're part of history in that regard and in our own backyard. So, you know, that makes me feel proud of what we did as a group.
It was an Everest moment, I reckon, for us as rugby players. I think it was a really important healing process for everyone who loved the game. We could then bring rugby back into the fold.
It was while we were in the stand with no one else around, you can hear the noise outside, but you're kind of on your own suddenly. The team is, that it hit me that what we'd achieved and that life was going to be different.
And here comes the man, the captain of the All Blacks, David Kirk, who really put the nail in the French coffin with that telling try in the second half. Great moment for rugby in New Zealand. World Cup winners.
Holding the cup up and looking back to the rest of the team, and there's Andy standing there. And it just seemed it was totally instinctive.
And that's a great shot. Andy Dalton, who couldn't take part in the matches, and I think there might just be a tear in the eye of Andy Dalton, who could
there was something to be healed in New Zealand rugby, and the World Cup was that healing balm.